Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. The St. Helena Chamber of Commerce and PUC. Very excited to present this Conversations in Leadership panel discussion, professional development opportunity that we wanted to provide not only to the Chamber community and the student community, but our entire St. Helena and Upper Napa Valley community as well. My name is Joaquin Razo, and I serve as the Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer for the St. Helena Chamber of Commerce. I'm really excited to be moderating the panel here today. I'm going to introduce a few of all our panelists today, and then we're going to just dive right into some of those questions that we will have. If we have time at the end, you can also put those questions in the chat box, and then we will get to them as well. So first off, joining us is Cynthia Ariosta, is the managing partner at Trevino Pizzeria in St. Helena, a California transplant originally from Staten Island, New York. Cynthia has over 30 years in the restaurant business, dating back to her bartending gigs in Midtown Manhattan. Cynthia's life is defined by hunger and thirst, not just in her passion for the restaurant business, but in her insatiable cravings for travel and culinary adventures, learning about countries and cultures throughout the experience she has had with food. She's also written 2 food-related articles for Word of Mouth magazine, including one about the necessity of Western cultures to embrace the consumption of edible insects, and other about her recent journey through Sicily that unlocked a culinary mystery. Also joining us is Lindsay Gallagher, and she is the President and CEO of Visit Napa Valley, the official destination management organization for Napa Valley, with a continued mission to promote, protect, and enhance the region's position as an attractive travel destination, while also enhancing its public image as a dynamic place to visit, live, and work. Lindsay joined Visit Napa Valley in February of 2019 after serving 10 years as Vice President of International Marketing for the California Wine Institute, a trade association representing 1,000 wineries throughout the Golden State. Lindsay brings a diverse marketing and management background to the Visit Napa Valley role. She gained wine industry experience at E.J. Gallo Winery, responsible for marketing strategy and brand execution for several important domestic brands. Prior to this, Gallagher was manager of finance for the NBC Today Show and financial analyst for General Electric Capital Services. Also with us is Nathan Davis. Nathan joined the acclaimed Harvest Inn in St. Helena as a property general manager in spring of 2018. Davis's journey took him far and near with roles at the St. Regis Monarch Beach Resort and Spa, managing Michael Nina's Stonehill Tavern in Sacramento, overseeing all food and beverage outlets at the Sheraton Grand Hotel, before becoming the food and beverage director at the Westin Maui Resort and Spa. After spending a few years in Maui, Nathan moved back to California and served as the Director of Operations at the U.S. Grant, a luxury collection hotel in San Diego, where the property was awarded the Starwood Global Luxury Collection Hotel of the Year Award in 2012 under his leadership. Davis's career then took him back to Northern California to join the Silverado Resort and Spa in Napa Valley as a resort manager, where he led preparations and welcoming back the PGA to the resort after more than a 20-year hiatus. His proudest achievement at Silverado was the final year in welcoming the new title sponsor, Safeway, and taking over all on-course food and beverage offerings. While he's not running point at Harvest Inn, Davis enjoys running and spending time with his Napa native wife and 3 children. And last but not least, Bobby Pena is a proven communications professional with a solid track record of success in public relations, marketing, and outreach communication strategies with more than 30 years of experience. Bobby has demonstrated success in driving strong communication strategies with small businesses and large corporations, trade associations, nonprofits, and organizations of all sizes. Bobby is a well-respected member of the Latino business community and has helped large and small for and nonprofit organizations and government agencies reach Latino and other ethnic markets. Through innovative programs to reach directly into the community, Bobby and his firm have helped educate ethnic communities, drive attention for multiple issues, and move audiences into action. Bobby serves as an instructor in Pacific Union College's communication department, where he teaches public relations and marketing courses. He's also a graduate of Pacific Union College with a degree in public relations. Well, first I want to thank everybody for joining us. And I'm just so excited about the conversation that's going to take place, such amazing talent and experts, and just really excited to dive right in. I'm going to ask everybody to start off with the first question. What path did you take, did your career take that resulted in what you do now? What excites you about that, that passion for what you do with your work? And let's kick it off. I'm going to kick it off with Lindsay, if you'd like to start for us.
Hi there. Thank you, Joaquin, and hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. Let's see. I think that, my career has taken a lot of unexpected twists and turns. And I guess my advice to those who are tuning in today is to have the courage to walk through those doors when they open for you. And you never know where that journey is going to lead you. I grew up in a small town in Vermont, an area that has more cows than people, and did not drink wine growing up or until I got to college, really. So ironic that I now live and work in wine country, which is just another beautiful agricultural spot with a different product than milk and cheese. But in any event, I think that it is important to have that courage to pursue things that might be a little bit unexpected and you can't quite see where it's going to lead you. But for me, it's been a fantastic journey. So I went to the University of Vermont and studied international business administration there. I wasn't really sure how I was going to apply that, but I did. After college, went to work for GE Capital, General Electric's capital financial services business, and spent 3 years working in different divisions of GE Capital. I got really good at spreadsheets and I got really good at financial planning and analysis, and I didn't really like it. So from there, one of my former managers at GE Capital had gone to be the CFO for NBC down in New York. And at the time, General Electric wholly owned the NBC television network. And I thought, that's going to definitely be the coolest finance job I can find. So I followed him and was a manager of finance for the Today Show on the production finance side of things for a couple of years. My office there was at 30 Rockefeller Plaza. That's before Tina Fey had a show called 30 Rock. And back in the early 2000s, I guess that was, I had a television on my desk and I had a feed to all of the studios within the NBC tower. So at the time, that was Rosie O'Donnell, Conan O'Brien, NBC Sports, Saturday Night Live, and a few other shows. And so my parents were puzzled by how I could get any work done with a television on my desk. But it was a great experience to apply those financial skills in a totally different context. But while at the Today Show, I realized that I didn't want to stay in finance and I'd really like to get into the front end of the business. And I couldn't afford to take the pay cut and survive in New York City if I were to go into the production side of things. And so I decided to apply to business school. I was lucky to have some choices in where I could go, and I'm from the Northeast. And so some of the well-known business schools on the East Coast are, very coveted opportunities. I chose not to do that and instead went to Kellogg at Northwestern because I knew I wanted to focus in marketing. So again, that was an example of sort of being true to what made sense to me and may not have been the most logical choice on paper. But I'm very thankful that I went and got my MBA there. And I did a summer internship with the SC Johnson Company in Racine, Wisconsin, working on Ziploc bags. So I knew that I liked the consumer packaged goods side of things, but I didn't like working on a product that everyone threw away after they used. And so I had many friends that went to very well-known consumer packaged goods company, ended up working on kitty litter or Velveeta cheese or a number of great Midwestern products. And once again, I was like, I need to find a product that I like. And so I ended up meeting Stephanie Gallo, who is the granddaughter of Ernest Gallo and also had gone to Kellogg, same school. She came to recruit. I was not interested in working for E&J Gallo Winery, but a friend of mine convinced me there'd be free wine at the presentation. So I went to the presentation and connected with Stephanie, and she encouraged me to interview the next day. I told her I literally knew nothing about wine other than there was red and white, and she reassured me that they could teach me that piece of the puzzle. So the rest is history, as they say. I ended up taking a full-time role with E&J Gallo, having never been to California except for my interview with Gallo, and spent 5 wonderful years working in the marketing team there, and really got to cut my teeth and learn the wine business. And then the next door that opened was an opportunity to go to the California Wine Institute and work on behalf of 1,000 wineries at the statewide level. And I ran the international marketing program, selling California wines and marketing the category in 30 countries around the world. It was a fabulous opportunity to travel a crazy amount, to see all these countries and to help understand how California could compete with wine from France or Australia or New Zealand or Chile or Argentina, or you name it. So I spent a great 10 years there, saw the world a few hundred times around, and was really thrilled to get to take my next opportunity here in the Napa Valley with Visit Napa Valley, combining my love of tourism and talking about the destination, which is really what I was doing in these international markets for California wine, talking about the world-class wine producing region and this iconic destination. And I had lived in Napa for 5 years before that and had been commuting all over the world. So it's I now can walk to my office and get to focus on where I live here in the Napa Valley. So that's my very circuitous path to where I got today.
That's so great. Thank you for sharing. Let's move it over to Bobby. How about you?
Yeah, so my career started at Pacific Union College with a degree in public relations and a minor in business marketing. Headed down because my girlfriend, fiance at the time, was going to have to head down to finish her nursing program in Southern Cal. So I decided Southern Cal was the route. I think how I got here was because an early mentor, my first job was at a hospital in Southern California, and an early mentor there said, Bobby, I know you're not going to stay, you're not going to retire from this job, you're 21 years old. As you look for your next job, think about how it's going to propel you to your following job and two or three jobs down the road. So spent a number of years doing that in healthcare, public relations, before I opened my firm about 19 years ago. And the one thing I've always liked is training, especially in marketing. I always view marketing as if your first goal is to sell something, then you're missing the boat. You should be educating and showing and being a resource. So with that, training and education is always key, and I love doing it. I love doing media trainings. So a handful of years ago, when PUC approached me, I think they were in a bind. A PR professor had left with a little short notice, and I was close enough to help out. So I stepped into class scared to death, and said, give me upperclassmen because I think I can be more useful to them. Don't give me an intro class with a bunch of freshmen. And that's what they did, is give me an intro class. And I loved it. Being able to give a broad picture perspective of marketing and public relations and communications. And then didn't teach for a while, or taught on and off, and would guest lecture. And now for the last year or so, I've been teaching on a more regular basis, and just love it. I love bringing up and training the next generation of communicators and marketers to hopefully do it right. And just love the diversity of running a business and teaching. And teaching is kind of it also gives me new ideas, right? Because I'm running into all these young people with all this vigor and excitement for their future careers. So that's a little bit of how I got here.
Thank you. All right. How about Cynthia?
I'm going to second what Lindsay said, in that you have to be prepared to step through the doors that the universe opens to you. They only open for short windows. And if you don't recognize that there's a door there, it will close, and then there'll be another one, but you might have missed something if you didn't step through that door. So my life has also been a series of stepping through some interesting doorways. But I'm from Staten Island, New York originally. I graduated from Syracuse University with a bachelor's in communications, and I was intending on being a television superstar. So I came out of school with a minor in acting, and then I continued to pursue an acting career in New York City. Well, the way you support yourself in New York City is by waiting tables and bartending when you're trying to be in the television business. And so I spent about 8 years in the restaurant business as a waiter or bartender. And then at 28 years old, I decided to give all of that up and go back to school to become a vet, but I needed a bachelor's degree in science. And so I went to Columbia University and got accepted to their post-baccalaureate pre-medical program. And I was failing pre-calculus the first semester. It's just like my brain was not made for that. And so I quit that. And then I moved to California to get paid to ride horses. So stayed in the hospitality industry. But I was, serving people horseback rides on the beach instead of, steaks and great wine. And so I did that. But during that time, I also got married, and then we bought a little pizzeria up in Fort Bragg that's still there. And my ex-husband still has that little pizzeria called Piaci. And then we got divorced, and I said, I'm still never doing the restaurant business again. And then about 2 years later, that little vein gets tapped to be back in the restaurant business, because it's really, pandemic aside, it can be really exciting, and it's an ever-changing stage, really. And for me, that's what acting was so exciting. It was every day. It was a different cast of characters. It was a different script. You never kind of knew what was going to happen. And it's kind of how I feel about the restaurant business. It's so dynamic that it is like having a stage to be on. So I finally decided to just embrace that kept coming into my life, and opened my own restaurant in Ukiah called Saucy in 2012, which I funded, I designed, I built, I did the whole thing, the whole gamut. And then during that time, I met my business partner, Bill Ufson, and my other business partner, Nash Cognetti, here at Pizzeria Trevina. And when I decided to sell Saucy in 2017, one of their primary partners here at Trevina was leaving the partnership. And so they offered for me to take that piece of the pie. And so that brought me to St. Helena, thankfully, and got me out of Ukiah. So thrilled to be here. And again, lots of, doors opening and step through. And I mean, who would have known when I left New York to move to California from Brooklyn to Fort Bragg to get paid to ride horses, I'd be here, as a managing partner at Pizzeria Trevina.
I love that. And I love that analogy that you use. I think a lot of us can apply that to a lot of our hospitality sectors and hospitality businesses in that regard. I think that's great. All right, Nathan.
Joaquin, thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to meet with y'all and spend some time. I started my career, I'm from Chico, California originally, and started my career at Taco Bell at age 16 up in wonderful Chico, California, continued on to Long John Silver's, and then I'll skip a couple steps, but ended up spending, 5 years in San Francisco from 18 until 24. Cynthia, I was in New York for a year. I certainly understand and appreciate the position you were in out there, although I was certainly far from trying to be an actor, though I feel like we do have to do a lot of that every day in our jobs. I ended up going back to school at age 25 in Chico, pursued a degree in international relations, and put myself through school, waiting tables, bartending, and supervising at a nice little restaurant up in Chico. If you've been there, it was called the Red Taverns, but spent a good 4 years there. And then launched really head first back into the world of hotel restaurants, continuing on now it's been a 23-year career in hotels and restaurants and 7 years in standalone restaurants. It's been a lot of fun. I would also attest that the universe conspires. As I look back in my 8 years with Starwood Resorts and Hotels, 4 different properties, I made no secret that my wife was born and raised in Napa Valley, and that my intention and desire was to be a general manager of a resort up here in the Valley. And one day, John Evans, the managing director at Silverado, called and invited me to come up for an interview to work with him at Silverado Resort and Spa. And so they say is history, and that we took that opportunity and haven't left since then. Left Silverado to join the Bodega Bay Lodge as general manager, did the drive out there for a year, and then the opportunity here at Harvest Inn came available. And 3 years ago, just over a month ago, started here and took over the reins to help kind of usher in this new era for Harvest Inn. It's been a wild ride and can't look back twice. Just all I'd say is I would never go back and do it again, but I've really enjoyed everything that's occurred. And I too agree that you make decisions as you go, and it's all about the choices you make, and that you've got to be feeling blessed and lucky to know that life will present itself to you if you're willing to open up and just grab it.
Awesome, thank you. I think we've all kind of, just listening to to everybody. We've all kind of had those twists and turns, and we kind of made those decisions to take the different routes to get to where we are now. But I'm going to ask, actually, let's start with Cynthia. And I'm going to ask, what do you wish you knew more about maybe earlier on in your career? Just in general, things that you wish you had known then that you know now, or things that you think people should know, or students or other people in the hospitality industry?
I think no matter what business you're in, there's a financial component. So when you think you're in marketing, that's very creative. When you think you're in restaurant, it's food and wine. When you think you're in horses, it's about the animals. But there's always a financial component. And if your finances of your business aren't healthy, it doesn't matter your level of creativity or how well you can cook the food or ride the horse or do a Facebook post. You have to understand the financials of your business. And I think I didn't really understand the financials of the restaurant industry until I had Saucy, until I was really on my own, and really had to analyze the nickels and dimes and how every little dime was spent, so that I could figure out how to save a dime over here because I wanted to spend $1 over here. And I think that I wish in school and as a young person that I had more education, or knew that I should have more education in finance, even some basics in economics and how to read a P&L, about the difference between a P&L and a balance sheet, about how to, just because you have money in your bank account doesn't mean you actually have money to spend. It may have already been spent. You just haven't written the check yet. And so I would encourage everybody that is going into any kind of business, whether you're going to be an employer or an employee, to understand the finances of the business that you're doing as early on as possible. It makes you much more versatile as an employer. It also makes you much more versatile as an employee, because you can actually have candid discussions with your employer about why they're making choices. Because I think employers very often have to make choices that the employee might feel is to the detriment of them, but in the long term, the employer is trying to maintain the health of the business, and the health of the business is what keeps people employed. We saw that a lot during the pandemic, right? The idea during the pandemic was to just keep the business open so that we could continue to employ people. And so I really think there's got to be a basis in understanding finance for any business, no matter what you're going into.
So very true. And Lindsay, I know you went from looking at financial spreadsheets to now leading, a very large marketing organization. What would your advice would be, or what would you, kind of your takeaways for people in terms of getting to where you were and going from kind of switching those different types of careers to really finding that path?
I would echo what Cynthia said. I started in finance and tried my best to get away from it. And let me tell you that the last 370 days have been about finance and cash flow. I got the first 6 months in this new role with Visit Napa Valley, and I get to walk to work, and I get to work with my friends at Napa Valley Vintners, and I have great partners like Nathan. And so I had a really good start and a good transition. I wasn't traveling quite as much, but I was traveling, in the States, not to China and to Sweden and to Canada, and all the wheels fell off the bus last March. And all I've done for the last year is do finance. And I do cash flow with my board of directors, executive committee every Wednesday, and all these things that I thought I was far away from. Those fundamentals will serve you well. May you not have to navigate them during a pandemic and try to save a business and an industry in the process as you're learning how to fly the plane as you fly it, as they say. But again, I think that, everybody needs to understand, as Cynthia said, the financial piece and what makes a business run and succeed, how it is healthy or not, at every level in every business. That is great knowledge to have. And I think that will always serve you as a foundation to whatever is next. Yes, my role and the mission of Visit Napa Valley is the destination marketing organization of the Napa Valley. We are so thrilled to be entrusted and as stewards of the Napa Valley brand on the world stage. But let me tell you that the last year has been about finance. So.
I know, Bobby, you had mentioned, one of your biggest kind of your pillars is making sure that training and education and resources are a part of a foundation for everybody looking to be in marketing and the entrepreneurship marketing efforts. Maybe can you give some, like, is there any training or resources that someone starting out could really kind of find, promoting college and the degrees and everything, but also separate, like after the college degree? Is there anything that someone can do on their own to hone in to find those resources as they move into career paths?
Yeah, a couple of things that I tell my students on a regular basis, and candidly, I wish I would have done a little bit more. Echo what Lindsay and Cynthia said. Understanding not just finance but operations, right? So one of the things I say to my students is, don't stop being a student when you leave here, when you leave PUC. I wish early on, and what I would suggest is, go find, you should always be reading a leadership book. You should always be reading a business book or an article or something. So, go find and get different perspectives. Listen to different perspectives on leadership from different voices, and it's going to help round you out. Same thing with business operations. The other thing I tell my students is to get involved. Jump in. Find someone who will give you opportunity, even if it's volunteer. It's going to help you grow, and don't be afraid to try something different. My strength is the marketing, the PR side, but I had to learn how to run a business. I'm blessed that I have a wonderful business partner who handles the business side of our business. But I was just teaching a class last quarter on marketing plans, and being able and talking with the students about, you can't do marketing. I can't do good PR or marketing, or it's going to just turn around and bite me if the operations of an organization are horrible, because that's going to come out really quickly. So the one thing I say to students is you have to understand the holistic approach to marketing. You have to understand the entirety of the business. What's sales doing? What's operations doing? What are the goals for the next 6 months, year, 5 years? But really that message of and no specific resource, everybody's going to find something different, but keep learning, keep reading, TED Talks, YouTube, search talks on leadership. If you don't want to read, there's plenty of videos, but just really, if there's industries you want to get in, learn about the industries, but really business, operations, and leadership, keep learning those areas, learn from what other people have done, learn from the mistakes they've made, and keep growing.
Thank you. Before I move on to the next question, Nathan, do you have anything that you kind of want to add in that perspective, that realm?
Yeah, I guess my two things would be that there's a great book called Walk a While in My Shoes. I really love that book, and that it hits on, when you flip the page, there's two different stories as you read the book. And on one side, it's, let's say, an operations person's mindset. And on the other side is the sales manager's mindset. And we know that those two can sometimes in our hotel environment be competing priorities for what the sales manager wants and what the food and beverage manager wants. And so as I look at kind of really asking a lot of my leaders to read that book, I think it's important because it highlights the kind of operation that I know I take pride in managing today. So I wish I'd found that book a little bit earlier in life, because at times we like to draw battle lines as when we're young leaders in trying to protect our team from other teams at a property. And I think that sometimes those battles can just become entrenched and non-productive. And so that was important for me to learn, was that we're all in it together. We all have to work and cooperate and collaborate, and that ultimately there's no place for silos in our organizations today. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I really thought of when I saw this question, Joaquin, was that I wish I had discovered the power of mindfulness and meditation a little bit earlier in life. We joke and laugh now about the COVID and the year that's been, but I think that in reality, like whether it's COVID, whether it's a tsunami, whether it's an earthquake, whether it's a call out from your night auditor, whether it's a walk off the job from a front office manager, you ultimately deal with a lot of crises every day in your career when you're leading people. And ultimately, at the end of the day, we're only as good as what we can nurture ourselves to be. And so I've certainly found the power in finding my quiet space at home on a regular basis to just be able to calm the noise so that I can find the eye of my storm.
Yeah, I think that's so important, especially just in that mental health and balance between work and life and personal, you know, kind of connections to just your family at home and everything like that. I think that's so important. Moving into the next question, and speaking of collaboration, and as we know, Napa Valley as a whole, collaboration is so important between all our industry and all our partners and all our different businesses. But how do you promote creative collaboration within your team as well? And that's the first set to this question. And then the follow-up to that would be too, or if you want to speak to it about the same time, you know, and with other businesses and other partners, how do we promote collaboration in our house and also externally outside? So Nathan, actually, let's have you start off with us too, and we'll kind of work our way the other direction this time.
Yeah, sure, Joaquin, thank you. I think it's a good question. Collaboration obviously is a super important element in our business today. And really when I think about collaboration, it's certainly working together, it's partnering with one another. But you know, something that we talk a lot about in our organization is that everybody has a job to do. And it starts with, you know, every individual on your job who has an important role fulfilling their job. Because we know how it feels whenever somebody on our team is not doing their job. That means somebody else has to step in to do it because the work has to be done. As long as every person on our team is fulfilling the role that they're assigned, and then when they have a moment of free time, taking a moment to peek their head out and look around and see who else might need a little bit of help, and then offering to help with a little bit of that free time, we find that there's a lot of synergies that can come from our team reaching across the aisle to help different people, whether it's in the same position, whether it's a colleague from a different department. And so we really try to encourage folks to, you know, number one, do your job, and then look around and see who needs help and see if you can help. Because we know that in everybody's world, a business ebbs and flows, and every person on your team's workload ebbs and flows. And at one point when somebody's finding a moment to relax is another point when somebody else is stressed. And so there's an opportunity there for us to work together. I would also say, though, that I think a very important part of collaboration is listening. And so I can't downplay enough the significance that when our team comes to us as leaders, or when we go to a peer and we have something we share with something we need, support that we require, we have to be able to open our ears and listen deeply, not rush to conclusions, and try our best to provide a thoughtful response, or at least be a person that somebody can feel comfortable coming to, and then again challenge yourself to reach out to support. I feel very passionately that there is no one person that's more important than any other on a team. Everybody has their job to do, and it's just more a matter of opening up the line of dialogue so that anybody that has feedback, we take that feedback seriously. And then, as we know, especially over the past year with the financial constraints that our business has been placed under, we may not always be able to go and write a check to solve whatever somebody's issue is due to our financial limitations. But what we can do is we can be honest with them with an answer. If they say they need more glassware, let's say in the restaurant, we can try to challenge them to figure out how to do more with less right now, instead of not answering the question and leading them on with a hoped for response that may never come. And then in not responding to their ask for support in whatever way it is, if we just can't deliver for them in the way that they envision, I think it's better for us to be honest with them about that instead of leave them wanting, because I feel that leave them wanting is going to undermine their trust worse than our giving them the realistic financial decision that needs to be made around running the business today different than before.
That's great. Very true. Lindsay, we're talking about collaboration and Napa Valley as a whole, and understanding that marketing has a large component of collaboration, especially within our industries and what that may be. As you know, kind of that marketing drive force behind the Napa Valley, what would be your kind of thoughts on collaboration and the importance, and maybe even some of that perspective of how you promote collaboration within your team, but also outside within those business partners and the Napa Valley partners as well?
Yes, thanks for that question, Joaquin. I would say that, that is the crux of my role currently at Visit Napa Valley, is how to foster communication, how to encourage collaboration at all levels, internally and externally. We have 400 partners who are paying members of Visit Napa Valley, and the entire hotel community and hospitality community are contributing through a transient occupancy tax and a tourism improvement district revenue. And so we are, I am laser beam focused on the fact that is voluntary, and we are being entrusted with that funding to do the best we can on behalf of the collective and continue to foster that Napa Valley brand on the world stage. And so that's what we do day in and day out. But we can't do that and succeed at a valley-wide level unless we have great relationships with folks like Joaquin and the team at the St. Helena Chamber. You may or may not know, there are several other chamber organizations and town marketing components to our puzzle. For every time, just very quickly, every time a visitor stays in a hotel, let's say they spend $100 on their hotel room, $2 goes into a marketing fund. Visit Napa Valley gets $1.50, and then the town where that hotel property is located gets 50 cents. I'm sort of oversimplifying here, but you have an understanding that pie is shared amongst the valley-wide work that we do, but also at a town level. And so 1 + 1 can equal 3 in this scenario if we do it right, and then 1 + 1 can equal 0 if we don't do this right. And so I am very, place a high level of priority on making sure that I am pulling through what Visit California is doing at a statewide level with their $150 million normal budget on a global scale. And that's a great big sister to have out there trying to pull those visitors into California. And I want them then to come to the Napa Valley once they've decided to come to California. And from there, I want them to visit St. Helena and Calistoga and Yountville and American Canyon and the unincorporated county and downtown Napa as well. And so, we have to work together and we can, the sky's the limit when we are working well together. And it's really detrimental if we're not. So in that regard, I hope that the work that we do at Visit Napa Valley is not only inspiring people to come visit us from all over the country and all over the world, but I hope that it's also inspiring to our partners and our friends who we collaborate with here in the Valley, so that we're telling a great Napa Valley story, and then there's a great St. Helena story, and then there's a great Harvest Inn story, and from there. And I sort of call that the funnel, if you will, where we're starting at a US and California and Napa Valley and St. Helena and Harvest Inn. And if that works well, then we are able to be successful as we have been for dozens of decades here in the Napa Valley. But it's a hard-earned reputation that our partners also on the wine side. So the Napa Valley vintners are really great collaborators and friends of us on the hospitality side. And if they hadn't done what they have facilitated over the last 50, 75, 100 years to foster collaboration in the wine community, then we wouldn't have this great Napa Valley wine brand that people want to come from around the world and visit. And the wine quality has to be there. You don't earn that world-class reputation very easily. And we've invested a lot of time and money and a lot of footwork out on the road all around the world flying that Napa Valley flag. And now we need to make sure that we win hearts and minds of visitors when they come here to the Napa Valley, and that they want to come back again, and that they don't just come to St. Helena, for example, and say, oh, I've done Napa Valley, check that off my list. We want them to come back to St. Helena, but also maybe try Calistoga, Yountville, American Canyon, downtown Napa. And so that's the role of, really making sure that everybody wants to be under that tent, and that you're relevant, and that, we're helping the rising tide raise all boats.
Awesome, thank you. Cynthia or Bobby, do you have anything to add to that question before I kind of dive into another one, or you're good? Awesome.
I think they covered it.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so as we talk about kind of more honing in on kind of all of these marketing pieces, I'm going to ask this to everybody, maybe as we've gone through a pandemic, as we've gone through different things, but even before that, marketing, the face of marketing has always continually changed. But maybe what do you feel that might be the biggest or strongest challenge to marketing right now as we kind of just in where we are, your perspective, small business, large business. I'm going to start with Cynthia.
Well, not having come from a marketing background at all, for me, the hardest part of marketing is being able to know what platform to use and then how to actually compete on it. Social media has become so this ever moving target, and every day it changes. And I'm just trying to figure out what hashtags to use, on Instagram, whether or not I should have that flow through to Facebook or do something different on Facebook. So I think the biggest challenge for me is to actually, I've never, Bobby's going to probably retch, but we've never created a marketing plan. It's just like, okay, what do we got to tell people today, and then try to execute it and get it out there. And so for me, it's constantly this challenge to actually sit down and be disciplined enough to actually come up with a marketing plan and then try to figure out how to execute it and put all the puzzle pieces into place, as well as the financial component. I mean, I do a lot of throwing toilet paper up against the wall to see if it sticks. And then if it doesn't, I try something else. So I'm kind of a natural pivoter, but that can get expensive. So you have to be careful. And if you're going to do that and you don't want to spend a lot of money, then you have to be willing to go out and try to farm it. Right. And so I'd like to actually at some point feel like we have money to hire some people to do some of this for us that know better than me. But certainly during the pandemic, we didn't have that. And it's not something that this business has ever invested in before. So trying to come up with a creative way to present to my partners, I think there's somebody better equipped out there than me to actually do this, who might be able to spend our dollars more wisely and free me up to do other things. But I do think keeping up with social media and knowing what platform is going to be the most effective for you is probably my biggest challenge. I'm pretty good at knowing how to utilize partnerships, using the chamber membership, using the Visit Napa Valley platform, and knowing that the chamber and Visit Napa Valley, you're not going to come to me and show up at my place and take pictures and farm information. I have to be willing to get that to you in order for you to utilize it. And I think a lot of businesses say, oh, I'm a member of the chamber, I expect them to do it for me. You're not going to do it. You need to get stuff from us. And so that I think I'm good at. It's kind of the other parts of it that I'm still trying to navigate. The one thing that I do know from a marketing class that I took in social media and digital marketing done right, I spent a lot of money to take this 5-day class, and I have sheets and sheets of notes on how to do Google ads and analytics this. But the one thing that I took out of there that still sits with me is to make sure to keep, take care of the hygiene, right? The hygiene being the top of the triangle, that my hours of operation are up to date on my website. If we're at 50% today, it says we're at 50% today. We've got indoor dining back, to make sure the menu is current. Like, if you're not current on even your basic information, it doesn't matter how many Facebook ads you place. You've got to make sure that when they get to your page, it's current information, because it can really frustrate the consumer. So I think I kind of tangented there, but I think the challenge is to also just keep your hygiene taken care of when you have so many moving parts moving every day that you're like, oh God, I got to go put that. We changed the beer. I've got to have the new menu on the website. So.
Yeah. And there are so many times where a business is so focused on what today's post is that you just inadvertently even forget about the Google search and the Google hours and making sure that's up to date, or on TripAdvisor. But I think that's also a great point, in the sense that there's, if not most of our businesses in Napa Valley, are small business owners trying to do these things for themselves, and that power of collaboration and promotion, and working with other agencies that provide those support systems, given there's a financial, opportunity. I'm going to pass it over to Bobby now to kind of speak to this as well.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest unknowns right now, so let's start kind of in the environment that we're in right now, and then maybe get a little bigger picture. Right now with this COVID environment and where we are now, I think one of the things we see across the board is the big problem is the unknown, right? Things are changing fast. People don't know, status changes when you go from one city to one city, one county to one county, one business to one business. So the unknown is probably one of the biggest challenges. But from a bigger perspective, Joaquin, you just mentioned small businesses, right? Part of the issue is and I'm guilty of this too, right? I do marketing and PR for a living, but I also run a small business, and I'm so busy doing marketing and PR for everybody else, I forget to do it for myself. And we get caught up in what we should be doing, and the other stuff, the operations, everything else that we need to be doing on a regular basis. What we suggest, and Cynthia's in the right place. Cynthia, I'm not going to rat, you're in exactly the right place. You're starting in the right place. What we suggest, especially to business owners, is start with the right questions. So often the challenge is people want to start at the end point, right? I'm going to run radio ads. Well, why do you want to run radio? Let's take a step back. Who's your audience, right? You're gonna hear the speech my students hear all the time, right? Start at the beginning. Who am I? What value do I bring as a business, especially compared to my competitors or collaborators or partners? What value do I bring? Who are my audiences? And then what are my messages? And take those steps, ask the right questions. Then you'll end up with, should I be on the radio? Should I be doing social media? Should I be doing events? Should I be, whatever? You'll end up at the vehicle. But it really starts, and the biggest challenge I see, especially with small business owners, or nonprofit owners, nonprofit, leaders, is they want to jump too far. Start with those simple questions. What's the most important thing? Who am I trying to reach? Who do I reach well? What's the next low-hanging fruit audience? And take step by step. You're not gonna jump all the way to the end in one day, but don't be afraid. And ask those tough questions and be realistic. When you're asking, what value do I bring? Be honest with yourself. If there's a problem in this part of your business, answer that problem and address it instead of pretending it doesn't exist.
That's great. Nathan.
Bobby, that was great, man. You gave me a lot to think about there. As I look at this question, I kind of think of it as it's the convergence right now. Aside from how do we get through the dry season, wildfire season that's to come, and the marketing challenges there, the light in the tunnel with COVID hopefully coming to an end, all of those short-sighted things. Kind of when I think about the bigger challenge in the hospitality industry today from a hotel and restaurant perspective is it's the convergence of three primary modes of marketing, with the old world Rolodex version of PR led by a third-party PR company who knows all of the writers out there, so that your owners feel proud to land their business in some glossy spread, whether it's travel and leisure or other. And then the world of digital marketing, which of course, as Cynthia talks about, the Google ad buys, the meta placements, all the various channels that you can be on in digital, and how all of those work against and for each other. And if you're not careful, you can get the booking, but you can spend more in one field than in another one to get the same one. And the constant asking the question, am I doing it right? And then the other third channel, which is that new social media world that we know is really becoming resilient and rebounding, especially with the micro-influencers, all the visitation, the request for free stays, and trying to balance those three in an old school world where they were all three different things. And now today, the more I look at it, it's all one language and it needs to be run by one team. And yet there isn't a real embracing of that reality by those disciplines yet. And so you've got the PR people that just want to do PR, you've got the social people that just want to do social, and then you've got your digital marketing people. And so to me, it's building it all into one person or one team, because then you can achieve one brand voice across all your platforms without sending mixed messages to your customer about your identity, and making sure too that through all those channels, you know which one's working and which one isn't. And then kind of that, fighter pilot mentality that we often operate in. If there's a red light, you don't focus on the green or yellow. The red is what's going to kill you. And so you're always, if you're not managing the data, it's managing you, and you're losing control of your business potential. And so to me, Joaquin, it's really the convergence of those three disciplines, and how do we bring those together into one language so that we've got a team of experts that can really apply the three in a symbiotic relationship.
Great. And I think as we talk about, when you look at things organizationally, the spider web of how everything's connected, I think there's a piece and component of integrity, and the integrity behind, what we market, or how we market our business, how we market our region. So the next question would be is how do we maintain integrity behind our marketing campaigns with, even just the idea of the quick facade behind social media, for example? How do we truly maintain the integrity by what we are putting out there? And I'm going to pose that to Lindsay first.
Yikes, that's a tough one. Look, I think, for us, for me, it is all about, authenticity for us as a destination. I also think there are a lot of misperceptions out there about what the Napa Valley is or what an experience in Napa Valley is like. And, my team is spending a lot of time and energy with our partners. And I know that, Nathan's team is tackling this as well. How do we stay relevant to that somewhat older core audience that has disposable income, that comes to the Napa Valley several times a year from Texas or Orange County or wherever it is? But how do we also appeal to a younger generation and not be that place where their parents went?
Oh, I think we lost her there for a second. Bobby, I'm going to kind of pass it over to you for this question. Just in terms of, seeing people get into the industry, into this field, but with this ever-changing social media and integrity behind it.
So authenticity is very important.
Okay, I'll jump in.
Yeah,
it's, I have this adage that I try to live by with our clients. And I tell our students, we never want to hit anybody with surprises, right? Nathan was talking about that a little bit. The worst thing I can ever do is surprise a client, because that's never going to be good. So it's the same thing. If someone's marketing something that's untrue or dishonest about their business, or overselling when they know that part of the operation isn't ready yet, you might, Cynthia might get the consumer, she might get the diner, Nathan might get the booking, but they're not going to come back again. And more importantly, instead of, if they loved to stay with Nathan, they might tell one person. If they hated to stay with Nathan, they're going to tell 20 people. So it's all about, again, back to understanding who you are so that you're telling an accurate story. Right now in the Napa Valley, and I talk to people because they know I teach at Pacific Union College. My son and daughter-in-law go to Pacific Union College. And the question I get from people outside of the area is it horrible? Is it burned down? Right. And so that's part of, your challenge right now. Our challenge right now is the perspective that, it's still beautiful. Yes, there was some devastation. There was definitely fire and negative impact, but it's still beautiful. And there's places and we're still open for business. So how do you right now, you're not just marketing, you've got to educate on what's that's still there, that it's still happening, that it's still open. So really it kind of comes down, for PUC, that's why you see a lot of our advertising is our students, right? Because kids are coming up here to get the college experience. We want them to see what other kids are learning. And we know if they come up and get a bad experience, no one from the school, that's going to travel quickly back to the school they just graduated from. If they get here freshman year, have a horrible experience, that next graduating class is going to know within a day. So if you're not living up to what you're marketing, it's just going to come back and bite you if you're not being honest.
Yeah, Joaquin, do you mind if I jump in on that?
Yeah, please feel free.
I love the go-between with Lindsay kind of starting off with the evolution of a brand with Napa Valley and how we are, we're leaving the legendary stage of Napa Valley, which I fully support the push that she's making and think it's genius, because legendary really does, to Bobby's point, set a really high expectation bar that we're forced to try to deliver. I remember a few years ago, a Visit Napa Valley sponsored symposium at the Copia where the guest speaker was a marketing genius. And his whole pitch was that, you know, experiences in the beginning in hotels where we used to sell a place to sleep. Then Weston created the Heavenly Bed and we sold a bed. And then we sold, you know, rich experiences. And he said 2020 was going to be a year of transformational experiences. And I thought to myself, holy cow, that's a lot to try to sell and deliver to every customer as an experience with God. I said, I think we're doomed to fail if that's what we're going to expect. And maybe, just maybe, COVID gave us the chance to reset the expectations, because our guests today are so much more pliable, patient, and understanding of when we're not perfect. And then I put myself in your shoes, Bobby, and I think to myself, like, the power of managing expectations of your customer before they get here so that you underpromise and overdeliver and leave them wanting to come back again, both to your business and to the wider Napa Valley, is a beautiful positioning, especially when we layer in the loss of Legendary and the migration of us to being a more friendly and affable destination, while we also don't look to lower our price points. And that's the challenge, because we still know we've got a high bar to meet with the prices that we charge. And that's where, like, I don't envy the work of Visit Napa Valley. I don't envy the work of our local chambers or our Napa Valley vintners for the effort that they have to try to corral all of us business people around the valley to speak with one language. Just like I work really hard to train my team here at Harvest Inn so that we speak with one language about our one little simple business model of a restaurant and a hotel. Lindsay's trying to cooperate with the whole valley to get us to speak around one brand, which is Napa Valley. And that is going to be a challenge that if we can all align behind that effort, it's going to greatly help all of us with the challenges that are on the horizon to come. One of them being, as we talked about with the wildfire season again, but another one being the fact that staffing in the valley is going to be very challenging. And if we keep Legendary as a model of performance, we're going to fall flat because there's not enough people to deliver that experience anymore. And so we've got some big challenges. And the more that we as a community can work together to align our voice, the better off we all are going to be for our customer.
Yeah, that angst of employment and training is definitely real right now. Cynthia, before I move on to the last question, is there anything you wanted to add to any of this?
No, I think that, you know, it's kind of like the whole basis of being real about who you are that everybody's talking about here. I mean, yes, as you know, Napa Valley, we have this, you know, this is Napa Valley. And I think one of the challenges for me when I started at Pizzeria Trevino was, we're in Napa Valley. We've got to be like Bottega, or, you know, I was comparing us to other like restaurants. Like, how do we compete with those people and get that consumer? And then, you know, Nash, God bless him, is such a great partner. You know, we would sit down and he would come up with all these great dishes that maybe we used to serve at Trevino, you know, and then they wouldn't sell. And then we would try it again, and then they wouldn't sell. And then they would try it again, and it wouldn't sell. And it was like, well, I guess we'd change menu items, and we'd have our customers who've been coming for 20 years get upset because we changed the very thing that they love the most. And so finally I was like, well, let's just embrace this. You know, let's just embrace this. We're actually in the process of redoing our website coming out of the pandemic because we've changed it so many times. It's gotten completely screwed up, but where it's like, all right, who are we and how can we really represent who we are? And we are kid friendly, and we are family friendly, and we are where the vineyard workers eat, and we are dog friendly on the patio. And it's okay to be all of those things. It's still an experience in Napa Valley. It's still quality and, you know, great food and great service, but it isn't trying to be something that we're not. And I think it's really, really important to say that in an individual level, and to say it, as Nathan was saying, on the county level. Like, we're going to have some service issues and employment issues, and we have got to kind of buffer the expectation of the visitor to the Napa Valley to say, hey, you're not going to be able to expect that white glove thing with 15 people fawning all over you anymore, because we don't know where to get those people from. And so I think being realistic about where we are on an individual level and on a county level is really important, and to collaborate on that.
Yeah. I hate how quickly these things go. I feel like we could keep talking for another hour. But final question for everybody. If there's one takeaway that you would want people to take away from all of this panel, this discussion, one thing you'd like to see either come to fruition or that you're excited for, or that, you know, that bases what you take pride to in marketing in Napa Valley, what would that one thing be? Whatever that scope is for you. Let's start with Bobby.
So I want to echo something that Nathan said a bit ago, right? To me, it comes down to teamwork. Cynthia just said it too, right? We've got to, Napa Valley, we've got to speak as one voice, make sure we're all on the same message, that we're selling the same products, right? That we're selling, it's still an experience in the Napa Valley, and it's going to be great. And with that, whenever I talk about partnership, the one thing I say is you have to be open to joint wins. You know, there's that old win-win scenario. You have to be open to that. You can't go into a partnership with the ulterior, I want to win-win, but I really want the win for me. You really have to step away from that and say, how am I going to win while my partner wins? And that partner is going to win, and everybody. And you might have to lower your own personal expectation, knowing that if the partnership works, you'll all come back up. You'll all go stronger. So that would be my biggest. And back to teamwork. I volunteer as a coach for high school, and I love it. And I love using that analogy with, you know, whether it's football team or basketball, that, you know, we're not going to win with one person. It's got to be a team, and we've got to see the value. And maybe sometimes I have to give up a little bit to let you shine, because we're all going to rise up. So that would be my one thing is where can you find the win for yourself and the win for your partner, to improve everybody across the board.
And I mean, I have to say, I absolutely love that phrase of being open to joint wins. I think that's so important. Cynthia.
Yeah, I want to say that this is a little bit personal, but some of you know I started a restaurant group during the pandemic, particularly in November, when we were kind of really going into crisis again with going back to takeout and delivery only and not even outside dining. And, you know, and it was it was about having conversations with local leaders, our mayors and our supervisors about what can they do to help us as a group, and what can we do as a group to help ourselves get through that very tenuous time in December. And we had such robust engagement at the beginning. I mean, we'd have like 30 and 40 restaurateurs, you know, tuning in and voicing, and we're going to build these recovery plans, and, you know, we need this and we need that. And we, you know, with Visit Napa Valley helped us with a video to encourage our locals to do takeout and, you know, buy from restaurants once or twice a week. And as we've started, then we started, you know, we got outdoor dining back, and then, you know, a little bit of indoor. And then all of a sudden, everybody just fell off. And there I would be, like, by myself with maybe 2 other restaurateurs and 3 mayors, like, okay, well, I guess everybody went back to work now. And it's kind of disappointing, because I always wondered why such a restaurant-rich environment as Napa Valley did not have a restaurant association like the Vintners have. And I was hoping that it was going to, like, come out of that, you know, and I was like, okay, I'm going to spearhead this. I'm going to really try. And so I do hope that somehow, and not out of crisis, that as things maybe normalize a little bit and people start to put all the pieces back together, that we can gel again a collaborative restaurant group that talks on a weekly basis and works together for our industry throughout this valley to solve problems, whether it's finding staff, whether it's training programs that we can do together. Maybe it's leveraging the CIA to help us, you know, what can we do to really have a stronger voice as a restaurant community so that we can, like, jointly win.
Yeah, so true. That's so great. And it goes back to that whole collaboration piece, and again, connects with the joint wins too. Lindsay.
Apologies for my wonky Wi-Fi today, everyone, but I have a connection at this moment, I think. So look, I
So
think
just that, yeah, that final takeaway, but yeah.
my goal is, look, we've had a lot of good news for the Napa Valley in the last 3 or 4 days. On Friday, we heard from the governor's office after a year of impatiently waiting that we will have guidelines to gather in groups safely starting on April 15th, which is a week from today. And so that's great news. We were the only state in the nation who didn't have that. And we finally do now know what that's going to look like. And quite honestly, they're more generous guidelines than I thought they were going to be. So that's great. On top of that, we moved back into the orange tier, which allows our wineries to host tastings inside up to 25% capacity. And our restaurant friends can have 50% inside capacity. And then lastly, we got the good news that the state is going to move beyond this tier-based color system into what's going to be called the green tier with less restrictions in June. So I think we went from a very dim light at the end of a long tunnel to a pretty bright light that we are in striking distance of. And so I couldn't be, prouder of our community and how our industry groups have come together with our elected officials. As Cynthia mentioned, we owe a huge debt of gratitude to each of the mayors and the city staff, as well as our county board of supervisors, and being willing to come to the table with industry and making sure that the economic lifeblood is in the consideration set in addition to the public health component that we're all wrestling with. So I think that, Napa Valley does collaboration better than anyone else out there. I know we're the envy of a lot of other destinations. It's, as Nathan said, it's a lot of cats to herd in my world with 400 partners and many, many staff members at each partner. But I do think that, look, this is our race to win now. And my goal is to win back more than our fair share of visitors coming out of this, and to get that economic engine back on track, and for us to be on a road to resilience in 2021. And I couldn't be more confident or more bullish on the long-term prospects of the Napa Valley.
Oh,
Nathan, I'm gonna have you jump in.
Well, that's a good line to
Yeah,
end on.
Joaquin,
Bullish
I
on the
would-
Napa
That
Valley.
is a great one.
I would just close by saying, Cynthia, sign me up for your restaurant program. I agree that that's a big need, so thank you, great idea. But I would just say, continue to love, be proud of the work that you're doing as a representative of Napa Valley. I think all of our voices need to speak as one. And it starts from loving on our place. And then if you're a leader, love on your team. Make sure that they're proud and that they're feeling your appreciation for the efforts and the services that they do. One other great takeaway that we all can have from COVID is just what the meaning of essential is again. And I think that when we think about it through that mindset, we know that every person on our team, from the room attendant to the dishwasher to the front desk agent, matters as much as anybody does. And they need to know that. They need to feel it every day that they come into work, and feel proud of the work that they're doing as an essential worker on the front lines. So thank you, everybody, for what you're doing out there. We value your contributions to the Valley.
Couldn't have said it better myself, and with everybody and everybody's gifts and words that they've shared today. And I want to thank everybody for watching. We went over a little bit of time, but I think it was a great conversation, and I appreciate every one of our panelists who are among many leaders in our Valley, and thank everybody for their time, and thank PUC for the partnership again. And there will be a recorded version that people can share, but thank you again for attending, and thank you again to our panelists.
thanks for having us.
Thank you.